Okay. So, you're probably here because you want to know more about soul ties, what a soul tie is, and how to break them. I'm going to read to you a little bit from my book. This is the book, Breaking Soul Ties. It's probably backwards. How to Take Your Whole Heart with You When Love is Over. Okay. Now, what a soul tie is a knitting of the spirit in your innermost parts. Will, emotions too. Well, it affects your will and emotions too, but it's a knitting together in the spirit. And the way God created it, of course, was to intend soul ties to be good, like friendships that come together and you have commonalities and camaraderie and you're knit together in the spirit. You're on one accord. Same thing with marriages. He intends for marriages to come together where both parties are knit together and nothing can separate that. Those are good soul ties. But because of the nature of soul ties and because the enemy always tries to pervert anything that's good, there are things we need to watch out for. So, of course, sex, sexual promiscuity, sexual acts, adultery, anything outside of marriage creates a soul tie, but it doesn't create a tie that is good. It doesn't create a tie that should be permanent because we shouldn't be sleeping with random people. We shouldn't be sleeping with people outside of our marriage. But it happens, people do it. But once you stop the illicit sex, once you stop the affair, you still have to break the soul tie. So let me read you a little section from my book that talks about why the enemy doesn't want you to be delivered. He doesn't want us to be delivered. And the way that he stops us from being delivered is making sure we don't come across the information that we need that show us what's going on in our life and why we need to be delivered from it. Sometimes he will pervert the information. Sometimes he will have us dismiss the information based on the person who's delivering the information, so then we don't get the freedom we need. But here's a little bit in that chapter. And I said, I almost didn't add this chapter. Why the enemy doesn't want you delivered seemed to be so obvious. However, some of you may need further explanation, so I'm being obedient. If a woman only has one sexual partner in her life, and that partner is her husband, the way God intended, and they mutually love and honor each other according to the word of God and honor their marriage covenant, then they are not only pleasing God, but as long as they keep every other relationship in its proper place, they keep error from entering and tainting what God joined together. Now, if a woman falls in love with her high school sweetheart at 16 years old and she finds herself pressured for sex, let's say she gives in, and then after a while they no longer find each other suitable, she moves on to find someone else and repeats the same cycle, and so does he until they each find a spouse. By the time they are each married, they are each like a broom that has swept up all the dirt and debris from every relationship they've had over the past 10 or 15 years and sweeps it right over the threshold of their lives and into the front door of their new marriage. That dirt and debris are unbroken ties to other people, and those unbroken ties will surely sabotage anything they try to build. So that's just a little excerpt from the book. In the book, I also talk about marriage covenant and divorce. Those are other soul ties you need to break if you've been married before. A lot of times people think all you have to do is delete the phone number, change your address, move, cut your hair, a whole lot of things that people do that don't actually break the tie in the spirit realm. And see, here's what a soul tie is. When you are connected to someone and you know what they like, you know what they do, you know what they're about, when you're no longer together, because of that tie, it can keep drawing you back to the person, for sex or for whatever it is that you two used to do together. Maybe it's getting high, maybe it's some other thing. It can have you not able to process the things that are happening in your life now, void of this person. So if you go to this specific restaurant that you have gone to with him or her before, immediately your mind starts reflecting and rehashing what you had. There are some people who can't move out of the state, or leave a church because of a soul tie, because someone they're tied to, because the innermost part and the spiritual are keeping them hostage to this thing or this place. I'm telling you, soul ties are real and it's scriptural. I have scriptures in the book. I also talk a little about incest, sexual abuse, and rape, because those are acts that create a soul tie, even though they are unwanted acts. So, in the case of incest, a brother, a sister, those things connect you with soul ties, but they're not the good kind of soul ties a father and daughter should have, or a brother and sister should have. That means the enemy has come in and now perverted that relationship. The same thing with any kind of sexual abuse by a husband, a boyfriend, a father figure, a teacher, a coach, anything like that, that now perverts the relationships and creates a soul tie, and you need to break that. The same thing with rape, and even in the case when you don't know who the attacker or the assailant was, you still need to go into the spirit and break those ties, because it can affect the rest of your life. In addition to opening the door for the spirit of lust and promiscuity and all sorts of things. You know, a lot of times we see young girls doing things that they have no business doing for their age, or things that they have no business doing because they're not married, and we don't take thought that maybe it's because of something that's happened, something that's been planted in them. It's not an excuse. They still need to break it, but we need to be more aware of soul ties. Old relationships, old boyfriends, if you're no longer in those relationships, the first thing I tell people, get rid of the stuff. It doesn't make sense. You might get a smile on your face every time you read the card, the Valentine's Day card they sent you. You might be enamored with the diamond tennis bracelet they give you, but give the enemy back his stuff. Don't leave a door open for the enemy to continuously have a hold on you, have a hold on your life. And even more than that, if you are a woman in waiting for a husband, for a spouse, don't let the things and trinkets and mementos that you have in your possession be the door that blocks your husband from walking in it. The word says that where your treasure is, your heart will be also. So don't put your treasure and your heart in the keeping of stuff. Release that stuff. God has more than enough capacity to restore all the trinkets that you think you're losing by giving away stuff that you got out of the relationship. I've heard many people say, oh, this ring cost $5,000. I'm not giving this away. I'm not pawning this. I'm not whatever. Okay, but then you are holding yourself hostage to that relationship because of the price tag on an item, and we are worth far more than that to God. God can surpass, he can triple whatever the cost of anything, like I said, it is that you think you're losing. He can restore it. He is a faithful restorer. Okay, so this book is actually no longer available anymore in paperback. I have like one of the last copies. I think I sold one of the last copies a few months ago, but it is available on Amazon.com. in ebook format. You can read it on your computer. If you have a Kindle, you can read it on your Kindle. I may get it back in stock if there's enough interest in the book, but right now there isn't. So the title of the book is Breaking Soul Ties: How to Take Your Whole Heart with You When Love is Over. And that's the key thing. I'm going to close with this thought. The Lord told me, He said that if you are looking for God to open the door in your life for a husband, a spouse, the one you've been praying and waiting and believing for, you have to make sure that you have taken your whole heart out of that previous relationship. We can't leave pieces of ourselves in all these little relationships that we've had in the past. We can't do that. We have to be diligent. We have to be faithful. We have to, even more than that, present our whole self when we are coming into a marriage covenant. Okay, so if you haven't already, Breaking Soul Ties: How to Take Your Whole Heart with You When Love is Over. Buy a copy for your friend, download a copy for yourself. If you have a young person in your life who may be out there at 16, like I shared from the excerpt that I read, that is out there just scattering themselves all over the place, get them this book so that they can understand the ramifications of soul ties. Marriage is a journey. I'm not going to say it's hard work, but it's a journey. You don't want to make your journey any harder or rougher than it needs to be by allowing yourself to have soul ties. Okay? And when I say soul ties, I'm talking about the bad kind, not the good kind. Okay? I'll explore this further a little later on, but I wanted to just get the basic message out there about soul ties. We need to break them. Don't pacify the soul ties in your life. Break them.